Okay, so now that we have added the ability to add items using the Enter key, let's go ahead and make it so that we can actually edit our items. So if we go ahead and take a look at what this is going to require, we're going to go ahead and see that we have access to the text here. So this new to-do text is going to be equal to this text that we've added. And what we're going to end up doing is creating an input box next to it, and we're going to hide it. And so by default, we're not going to see the input box. We're then going to need to take the do laundry text and be able to somehow indicate that we want to edit this item. So maybe I either create a edit box over here, like a button, or I can double click on this text using a double click event to tell it to start editing. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this text and put it into the text box, show the text box, and then hide this text. And that will get us to the editing stage. So let's just start with that. So what I'm going to do in order to do this is add a new item around our text. So right now we have an input box. This has a class of complete item. We have a delete button, which has a class of delete item, but the text itself does not have a class that we can easily access. So I'm going to add a new span around this element. So now we'll have a span, and we're going to give it the name of to-do text. And now we'll be able to access this very easily. What I'm also going to do is add an input box. So input type equals checkbox. We're going to go ahead and do type equals text. So we want it to be a checkbox, input box that someone can fill text into. And we're going to give this a class of new, let's see, edit text. So we already have this new to-do text over here, so just to keep things straight, we'll give it this class of edit text. And if we refresh our page over here and say do laundry, now you'll see that we have our text just as we had before, but now we also have a place for us to edit it. And what we don't want is that we don't want this text to this input text box to be here when we first create an item. So we can take this class, so this is our input box. We can take edit text and go into our CSS file. And what we're going to end up doing is using show and hide, which are two jQuery methods that will allow us to show elements or hide elements. And when we show and hide elements, we're actually turning on and off a CSS property called display, and the value is none. So if we do display none and refresh our page and add do laundry, now you'll see that all you see is the text. However, if we inspect the page, you'll see that here's our list item, here's our checkbox, here's our text, here's our input field, which we can't see, and then here's our trash can. So now that we have that text there, we want to somehow be able to fire that we want to edit this. And so we could do, again, double click, or we could add a new button over here. So what I'm going to do is a double click event, and I'm going to do that on to do text. So when someone double clicks on to do text, we're going to go ahead and fire that. So that's going to be, I'm going to copy the delete item event handler, and we're going to change this to do text. And let's say start editing. And again, we have to keep this pound to do's because this text does not exist when our page first loads. So now we have this new function that we have to create. So let's go ahead and do start editing. That also has an event that's being passed to it. And when we start editing, we have to do a few things. We need to go and get the current text, and we're going, well, we can do get current to do text. We need to place it inside the text box. We need to show the text box, and we need to hide the original or current text. So what we've got here is how are we going to get the current value of the text. So we can say var current text equals, and this is going to be that text. So we can say $ dot to do text, and because this is not an input box, we can't do dot val. This would give us the value of a input box or a checkbox or a text box, whatever it might be. In the case of an element like a span, we can get it with dot text. So now we are going to have done this item. We got the current text. What we want to do next is come way over here to our edit text box. So here's our input. And if let's go ahead and turn on soft wrapping. So now we can see it all at once. Here's that input box. And so we want to go ahead and set the value of that equal to our current text. So we're going to do $edit text dot val current text. This will set the current text equal to the value of that text box. So if we save that, you won't actually see anything because this text box is currently not being displayed. So let's go ahead and set it to .show. And let's go ahead and hide our original text, which is to do text. So this looks like it's going to work. The issue with this is that what we're actually going to end up doing is applying these to all of the items in our to-do list. So unfortunately, if I say do laundry and add the item, testing, add the item, if I double click on this, it's going to edit all of my items, and it also appended all of my items together, which is not exactly what we wanted to happen. We only want to edit one item at a time. And so what we have to do is we have to use this again. So at this point, when I call this is going to be equal to the text that we have right here. So when I double click on that, that will be the text. And when we only have one item, this will work actually the way we want it to. But what we're going to do is we're going to do this. And right now, this is equal to span all the way up to here. What we need to do is we need to go up to our parent, which is the li. So we can do dot parent. And then we actually have to go back down into the item that we care about. In this case, it's edit text, which we have here, and to do text, which we have here. So what we're going to do is use something called find, and find will go from the parent and look at all of the children elements and check to see if there is an element that has the same selector that is inside that parent. And what it's going to do is it's going to select the nearest item to it. And so in our case, the nearest or first item that we come across is going to be the one that we end up using. So dot find, and we're going to say dot to do text. So this whole line now has to replace this. So now we get the correct text. And we also have to do this on the rest of these. So we're going to take this here, and we can go ahead and get rid of that $sign. And we're going to do dot find dot edit text. We're going to do dot find edit text dot show, and then we're going to do it one more time to get the text that we actually want to hide. So we can now get rid of this, and if we run this, we should be able to add multiple items and be able to edit them one at a time. So to look at that again, we have our current text, we grab our parent element, which is our li, and then we go back down into our elements to find the nearest to do text, grab the text out of it, and then we're going to set that text into our edit field. Our edit field is then going to be shown, and then we're going to hide our current text. And what we can do here too is that we probably want to have a button that we enter so that they can save it. So in here, we're going to go ahead and add another button. So here's our input box. Let's go ahead and give this a button and a class of btn success. So we'll have a green button, button here. Close that. And let's just say save. So now if we refresh this and add a new item, you'll see that the button now shows up, which is not something that we want. So let's go ahead and go back to our CSS. Let's check before we do that to see. So this is our save button. Let's add a save to do, or let's stay with the same naming that we've been using. Let's do save item, and let's go into our CSS and say .save item. And we're going to give that a display none as well. So now when we add our items, you won't see the button, which is what we want. However, we will need to now show that button. So let's go ahead and do save item.show. So same thing happens here, this.parent.find, save item.show. If we say test, complete it, we can double click on it, and now that shows up. Now we can change this to our heart's content here, 1, 2, 3, and hit save, and that's when we want to actually change everything back. So far we have set it all up for editing, but now we need to set it to go back to what it looked like before with our new value. So we're going to add an event handler to this button. So if we come up here, we're going to copy this one again. We're going to do todos.onClick, but this time it's going to be on save item. So save item is that button that we created here. So you can see that in our HTML. And we're going to now create a function called stop editing. And let's clean this up a little bit here. And we'll come back to these functions to make them a little bit better after we add stop editing as well. So stop editing, now we have to draw out what we would like to do as well. So we would like to hide the save button. We'd like to hide the edit text box. We want to take the value from the edit text box and place it in our span, and then we want to show our span. So those are the 4 steps. It's basically what we had done before, but we want to do them backwards. So at this point we have this, which is the button that we fired. So we can actually just do this .hide, and that will get rid of the save button. So we can take this off of our list. But what we also want to do is now grab our edit text box. And we can do that exactly like we've done up above. So I'm going to grab that again and say this.parent. This is the text box. It's the save button. It's still on the page, it just can't be seen when we hide it. So now we're going to grab the parent, which is our list item, and then we're going to find the edit text box. And what we want to do is we want to grab the value out of it. And so now we can say var new value equals, and now that'll give us our value. We can also hide that box with .hide. So here's our hiding the edit box. And then we say here, take the value from the edit box, which we just did, var new value, and place it into our span. So up above here, we used .text to get access to our to-do text. We're going to do the same thing down here, this.parent.find to-do text.text, but instead of getting the text, we're actually going to pass it in a new value. So now we can save that. And we also have to show it. So let's grab that again and do .show. So now if we run this, let's do testing, do laundry, and now we can double click testing 1, 2, 3, hit save, and now that's returned back to normal. Do laundry, get groceries, save. Now we have our items there. We can cross it off and we can delete it. So let's just wrap this up by cleaning these up a little bit. So we have a whole lot of duplication here. So what I'm going to do is give this a var task li equals and set this equal to parent. So at this point, task li equals this dot parent. And this will just help us to kind of clean up our code a little bit. And you could technically do this for setting task.find edit text to a variable and using it there. We can do that again here. Equals this dot parent. And now that's accessing li task we care about in our list. So that still has the same number of lines, but at least we've cleaned up some things a little bit. And then you can refresh, make sure that everything still works. Double click in here, and it actually looks like we broke something. Yeah, $task li. There we go. And that works. So now we can come in here and add get eggs, add to do, delete, and that is it.